When I was a kid, a teenager, I was extremely active in my church. Like missionary, and taught Sunday school and led singing and ran a Boy Scout troop, a Cub Scout troop, and et cetera, et cetera. And one day the minister talked about a plane crash. He said, you know why those people all died? And we're all wondering how he knew. And he said, because they were all sinners and God was punishing them. Well, I'd heard about this plane crash, and there was a small 3-year-old child on it. And I couldn't relate a loving God to a God that would see a little 3-year-old child as so bad that it would punish it with such a seeming, to me, a very difficult death. So that was that and another thing. It was my last month in church. Because I just couldn't correlate a loving God with a God that would be that cruel. And so a question that I asked you right in the beginning of this, and I'd like you to answer just to have it on tape. We're creating our reality through our thoughts and so on. But how about the little baby, or how about the unborn baby that's born, like when it's born different enough that we would sense it as something very uncomfortable, or there's an illness that comes on it right away, or some sort of trauma occurs right after its birth. What's its part in that creation, etc.?
Well, everyone is creating their own experience. In other words, there's not an exception to that. Sometimes as you are having an experience that is different than what you think you would choose, you assume that you are miscreating or that someone else may be asserting it into your experience. When you see someone having an experience that you would not choose for yourself, the common response to that is somebody did something wrong. In other words, as Abraham is teaching it, the common thought would be, well, they must have been offering a vibration that was inappropriate. Or in the mind of your minister, he is saying they must have been doing something that is wrong, so someone who had power of assertion brought it into balance. And what we would say to you is that everyone that is living anything is always living the perfect vibrational match to whatever it is that they're offering. The question that then comes to mind here is, well, did these people want something different than they got? Did they have a vibration of desire that was different than their vibration of belief, and so they killed themselves in the plane crash even though it was not something that they wanted? Or was the plane crash a vibrational match to something that they did want? And we say there was some of all of that going on. In other words, we are not saying to you in this science of deliberate creation, as we say the universe is responding to your vibration, we're not saying to you that you are in every case getting exactly what you are saying you are wanting, but we are saying in every case you are getting exactly that which you are offering vibrationally. In order to understand how all of that fits into the greater scheme of things, you must first accept that you are eternal beings and that there is no risk factor involved here. In other words, this death thing that you all talk about is such a troubling, worrisome thing. You say, death is a bad thing. You warn your children about it almost as soon as they are born. You say, watch out, this could kill you. You give it to the people that you despise the most in your society. You give them the death penalty. And so there is a premise within your question, even that began way back there when you first acknowledged that plane crash, that goes something like, death is an inappropriate thing. Death is something that we should not want. And that's one of the reasons that so many of you have so much confusion about these things when they happen, because you keep automatically assuming that it is something unwanted on all levels and disapproved of by all aspects of your being, and therefore something that is a miscreation every time it occurs. And we say it is never a miscreation. It is always the perfect vibrational match. And as you make that transition into non-physical and you reclaim that broader perspective, then you understand all of that. You give this being that you call God all kinds of raps and responsibility that no one in the universe should have to bear. In other words, you ask a being to sort everything out and make all of those decisions, and we say to you, you are an extension of that energy, and that job or that assignment, or if you want to use the word, that responsibility, is shared by the individual aspects of that which you are calling God. And so it is technically correct. If you are wanting to call God, that non-physical energy that is sorting everything out, if you're wanting to give that the responsibility for what is happening, we could not argue with that as long as you're willing to acknowledge that you are on the leading edge of that which you are calling God, and that which you are perceiving and that which you are offering vibrationally is the result of that which you are achieving.
I think my concern was the punishment factor, that a child that little could have sinned so badly that a God would punish it.
Well,
I think that was what threw me the most.
Well, of course, that is ridiculous. But the thing that we are wanting you to hear is that the struggle that most of you have within that is your assumption that this death that this child experienced was such a bad thing that something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. And what we're wanting you to understand is that nothing has gone terribly wrong. So even a benevolent, loving God like the one you are wanting to believe in could have been part of all of that, because the death thing isn't what you all think it is anyway, you see. We'll talk more.